Every day you make the choice on how your children get to school. Should you drive them? Should they walk? Should they bike? Should you go with them? What sounds better to you? Active, healthy kids excited to get to school and learn, or a hectic, stressful morning drive to a crowded school parking lot? Would you prefer to see your children socializing and meeting their friends and neighbors on their daily walk to school? When bike lanes and paths through parks are available, the benefits of walking and cycling outweigh the risks almost 100 to 1. But even without bike lanes and with people driving cars, the benefits still outweigh the risks 9 to 1. Being active promotes well-being and positive mental health, helps kids focus, and improves creativity. Studies have shown that kids who get 30 to 40 minutes of exercise daily out of the recommended 60 minutes are able to concentrate and show less behavioral problems than kids who have a non-active lifestyle. Most children in Ontario are not getting enough exercise. By the time our kids reach high school, more than a third of the boys and girls are failing basic fitness scores. Driving our kids to school may rob them of an important source of physical activity. As parents, we have to encourage physical activity and make sure we keep them active throughout their lives. The tremendous health and academic benefits of walking and cycling to school also have an impact on the environment. Kids today are aware of environmental issues and empowered to take action.
We want to get more people to walk to school.
Through environmental clubs in the schools, student eco-teams encourage their peers to walk and cycle to school. Through the use of posters, surveys, social media, and information nights, the students promote Walk to School Wednesdays, October as Walk to School Month, and Bike to School Week in the spring. How can you help your child stay active and healthy? Encourage and allow them to walk or bike to school. Walk or cycle with them and enjoy the time together. Start your own walking groups with parent volunteers and students on your street. And don't forget to advocate in your community. More kids walking and biking mean less cars around the school, making it safer and healthier for the kids, parents, staff, and the environment.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for our webinar, Active, Safe, and Healthy, Travel Tips for Your Daily Journey to School. My name is Peggy Chang, and I'm a Community Outreach Education and Training Coordinator at Toronto and Region Conservation Authority, and the TRCA is a member of the PL Safe and Active Routes to School Committee. I will be your moderator this evening. Next slide. I'd like to begin by recognizing that wherever we are, we all work, live, and gather on traditional Indigenous territory. We acknowledge that the lands we are situated on are traditional territories and treaty lands, in particularly those of the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe of the Williams Treaty First Nation, the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and are now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work and meet in this territory. We are also grateful for the continued work of many Indigenous peoples who are the original caretakers of this land and humbly acknowledge our responsibility to respect Indigenous perspectives and elevate Indigenous voices. And we invite you to also acknowledge the territories and treaty lands in your local area as you explore your journey to school. Next slide. So this webinar is being hosted by the Peel Safe and Active Routes to School, or PSARTS committee. And this committee's vision is for a safe environment where the majority of Peel children and youth regularly use active and sustainable school transportation to and from school, including travel by school bus and public transportation. Through the work of its member organizations, as seen on this slide, PSARTS exists to provide support to and build capacity to advance active school travel policies, programs, and initiatives across Peel region. Next slide. So we know that this time of year is busy as you all prepare for back to school. So thank you for taking the time and joining us this evening. We have a packed webinar for you. So I'll begin by introducing our panel of presenters. Then each presenter will share their content on how you might travel in a safe, active, and healthy way to school this year. Then we'll answer the questions that you have submitted when you registered for the event. And then throughout the webinar, we will share some myth or fact test yourself questions to introduce some interactivity. Next slide. Before we dive into it, here are some friendly reminders for the event. If you need to step away at any time and you miss any part of this event, it is being recorded. The recording will be posted on the Region of Peel's Environmental Education website, which we'll provide the link to. And then we will also follow up with all of you through the email address that you provided upon registration. There is no live Q&A tonight, but we still encourage you to ask any questions that you may have in the chat, and we will collect all of these questions and provide a Q&A write-up after the event and share this with you all. If you're looking for more information about school travel within Peel Region, you can check out the websites from the Walk and Roll Peel, Environmental Education of Peel Region, Stop R, and Peel Children's Safety Village. One of the resources I want to highlight is the Walk and Roll to School Guide for Parents. And this is a free resource that can be accessed from the Walk and Roll Peel or Stop R websites, and is a great resource to support you on your journey. And you can download a free copy from the websites, and we're going to go through kind of this guide throughout tonight. Next slide. So now on to the main event. We're excited to have a panel of 5 speakers join us tonight. You'll hear from Sabat Ismail, who's the school travel planner with Green Communities Canada, Darcy Ford, the Transportation Safety Officer with Student Transportation of Peel Region, Michelle Olaf, Crossing Guard Coordinator with Town of Caledon, Constable Michael Wood from Peel Children's Safety Village, and Rahul Mehta, who works on the Community Cycling Program with Peel Multicultural Council. Next slide. So before we jump into our first presentation, we have our first myth or fact trivia interaction. So these will be scattered throughout our webinar in between our presentations. And how this will work, I will read a myth or fact statement, and you can let us know what you think in the chat if you think it's a myth or fact by typing that into the chat. Are you ready? So the first one, myth or fact, most families in Peel must drive to school. So if you think this is a myth, let us know. Write that word myth into the Q&A. If you think it's a fact, write that into the Q&A, and we'd love to know what you think. Is this a myth or a fact? Most families in Peel must drive to school. Or if you're at home with your families, maybe you can decide if this is a myth or a fact. This is actually indeed a myth. If you thought this was a myth, you are correct. Distance is often not as far as you think, and to walk half a kilometer, so 500 meters, is about 7.5 minutes for the average student, or about 3 minutes by bike. So if you add up the time it takes to get in the car, drive, find a place to park, you may not actually save that much time by driving. And those who live very far are often eligible to travel by school bus. So our first presenter, we are going to hear from Sabat from Green Communities Canada. Take it away, Sabat.
Thank you, Peggy. So I'm going to go over some of the numerous social, environmental, and health-related benefits for students engaging in active schools travel, and the benefits that I see communities embracing when they increase rates of school travel at their respective schools. So children who are more physically active learn better, sleep better, and are generally happier and healthier overall. And most Ontario students, as was said earlier, are not getting the required amounts of physical activity for healthy brain development. And children and youth are recommended to get at least 60 minutes of moderate to vigorous physical activity every day. And active school travel is a great way to develop exercise habits and implement this into your day-to-day lives and have families, children, and communities more active. And students that engage in active school travel on average have healthier brain development, and active school travel can lead to improved learning and enhanced academic outcomes. And this physical activity can also increase alertness, improve memory, and increase academic performance. And participation in active school travel overall also supports mental health reductions and reductions in rates of stress, depression, anxiety, and an increased and improved mental health on average. And children are particularly vulnerable to the adverse impacts of pollution. So it negatively impacts children and their bodies more. And cleaner air around the school zone by decreasing traveling to school via car overall benefits the school community and reduces the amount of pollution that's within the school zone. So it lessens the risk of respiratory health issues with growth, which can have, and the pollution can have an impact in affecting children's growth and development, allergic reactions, fatigue, attention problem, asthma, and more. And air pollution exposure also overall has a cognitive development impact on students. And so, and also particularly a lot of how schools are set up, and most of the schools that I work with, a lot of the kindergarten or daycare play area that's attached to the school, there's a fence outside and it's by the school parking lot or by the roads adjacent to the school. And so traveling to school via active means is one way that we can promote the health and well-being of our communities, and overall also reduces our environmental impact. Next slide, please. Thank you. And so there are also numerous social and safety benefits of active school travel. And to name a few, active school travel reduces congestion, supports safer school zones, because having so many cars around school zones is not conducive to, especially with younger children, there's limited visibility when children are being walked to school, and it limits the visibility of people getting to school on foot or on their bikes. So overall, reducing the amount of cars immediately surrounding the schools has a host of positive impacts. And multiple cars around school zones also enhanced these traffic safety concerns. It provides, and also walking to school has a tremendous positive social impact. So many children form fond memories walking to school, and they build a connection with their communities, have a better connection to their immediate surroundings. And even students that participated in an exercise where they're drawing how they got to school, showed more detail describing their community and illustrating that their school travel experience because of that experience of walking to school and how it allowed them to engage with their community. And engaging in active school travel also reduces the time school staff dedicate to school traffic safety concerns, which is also out of the scope of their work. But because the concerns are so pressing, so many principals, teachers that I work with as a school travel planner, it becomes essential to address the different traffic safety concerns because there are so many parents and guardians driving their students to school. And also so many of these schools are not designed to accommodate that large volume of cars, particularly because there are less and less students that are being driven to school than there have been in previous decades, particularly 20 years ago to today. And all of you attending can have the opportunity to change that tide and help to get your children to school via active means. And it's possible to also do that year-round. So thank you, and on to the next presenter.
Thank you, Sabat. So we have another test yourself moment. So as a reminder, if you think the statement is a myth, you can type myth in the chat. If you think it's a fact, type fact in the chat. So thank you for those that have interacted already. So this one, myth or fact, the safest travel mode is to drive your child to school. What do people think? Myth or fact, safest travel mode is to drive your child to school. Do you think this is a myth or do you think this is a fact? We have some people thinking it's a myth. You are correct. So it is a myth. Children are far more likely actually to be harmed as a passenger in a car than while walking or biking to school. And by choosing to walk instead of drive, you're making our streets actually safer for everyone. Plus, families and neighbors walking to and from school can actually help build a stronger sense of community, like Sabat had mentioned, and improve overall safety within the neighborhood. So I know that the reality is that not everyone is able to walk and roll to school because they live a little bit further. So we want to provide some information from Stop Bar, the student transportation of Peel Region. So we have Darcy here, so take it away, Darcy.
Well, thank you, Peggy, and welcome everyone. For those not familiar with Stop Bar, we are the branch of the school board that provides safe and reliable student transportation for the Peel District School Board, as well as the Dufferin Peel Catholic District School Board. On a daily basis, we transport over 60,000 students on our fleet of vehicles ranging around 1,400, and our fleet travels 94,000 kilometers a day. Next slide, please. Some of you may be wondering, is my child eligible for transportation? Well, Stop Bar applies the distance threshold policies that have been determined by both the Peel District School Board and the Dufferin Peel Catholic Board. When measuring the walking distance for a school, we use the ministry-approved software that utilizes pathways and walkways and any other structure that has been designed for pedestrian traffic. We do not use Google Maps or any other online mapping tool. Our calculations are from the closest property line of the student's primary address to the closest property line of the school address. For example, if a student is in JK through to grade 1 and their distance to school exceeds 1 kilometer, then they are deemed eligible for transportation. Next slide, please. To determine if your child is eligible for transportation, I encourage you to visit our website, stopbar.ca, and then click on the transportation eligibility option or use the link at the bottom of the slide. You will be presented with a screen requiring you to fill in some information, such as your street number, your street name, the municipality, the school board your child goes to, the grade, and optionally the program. Next slide, please. Next, you will receive a results page. The results page will state if you're eligible, and with a map identifying your child's home school and the address that you have entered. Seeing that students' grades and distances are used in the eligibility calculation, it is quite possible that a grade 1 student, excuse me, is eligible and their sibling in grade 3 is not. For easier reading, you have the ability to enlarge in this map. And for those not eligible for transportation or opt out of transportation, this tool can be used to assist you in determining the shortest walking or rolling route to your school. Next slide, please. At Stop Bar, we put forth our best effort to adhere to your child's busing schedule. But unfortunately, due to traffic, weather conditions, or other events beyond our control, there may be times when a bus is delayed or even canceled. To assist students and parents, we post all bus delays and cancellations on our website below the delay heading. We also encourage parents to register a transportation account in order to receive automatic late bus alerts and other important transportation information throughout the school year. You can find account registration instructions on our website by visiting stopbar.ca/accessing your busing information. Please note that this registration is only for the purpose of viewing your child's busing information and to receive automatic emails. Parents and students are not required to register for transportation. Every evening, The school sends us their student information, and we automatically assign busing to those students who meet the distance threshold criteria. Next slide, please. Every year, we offer some safety programs, one of which is our first-time rider program. It's designed for first-time riders and is an orientation and safety program to riding the school bus. The program consists of a short video, an activity booklet, and a certificate. This year's program took place on last Saturday, August 26th. Next slide, please. Now, for those who may have missed it, not to worry, as you can access our first-time riders safety program on our Stop Our website under the safety heading, or use the link found at the bottom of this slide. Next slide, please. For those who don't travel by school bus, there are many benefits of walking and rolling to school, some of which are outlined here. If your child rides the school bus, they can still receive the benefits offered through active transportation by walking to and from their designated bus stop. PSARTS offers some fantastic information, including tips guide on how to safely walk and roll to school. And you can find links to the PSART website, and the walk or roll to school guide can be found on our website under the safety heading or using the link seen below. Next slide, please. Well, there was to be a summary slide, but here we go. In summary, all of your students' transportation and transportation safety information can be located on our website, www.stopar.ca. Thank you, and back to you, Peggy.
Thank you, Darcy. And just so everyone knows, the Stop Our website is actually in the live Q&A in the chat, so you can check that out if that applies to you, and also find all the resources around student transportation. So we have our next myth or fact trivia. So do you think this is a myth or a fact? Some children may be too young to walk to school on their own. What do people think? Is this a myth or a fact? Getting some answers in. Someone thinks it's a fact. You are correct if you also thought it was a fact. So very young children are often not developmentally ready to navigate the journey to school on their own. And all children need some practice and some experience to develop these skills to travel independently to school. And you can help prepare them by walking with them and teaching them the rules of the road by modeling them yourself. You can refer to the skills checklist that will be discussed in a further presentation to help you determine whether your child is ready and to help teach them what they need to know. So speaking of walking and journeying, our next presentation is going to come from Michelle from the town of Caledon. Take it away, Michelle.
Thanks, Peggy. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining us tonight. My name is Michelle Olaf. I'm the Crossing Guard Coordinator for the town of Caledon, and I'm going to share with you some important safety tips for keeping students safe on their journeys to school and introduce you to the School Crossing Guard program. We are all responsible for safe traveling, especially during the school year. We need to remember to stop, look, listen, and think when traveling to school, whether it be walking, bicycling, or driving. Be aware and cross with care. Crossing guards play an important role in helping keep students safe on their travel to school. How do we do this? Next page, please. First, I want to share with everyone that the School Crossing Guard program is guided by the Ontario Traffic Council and the Ministry of Transportation of Ontario, and rules for crossing guard zones are set out by the Highway Traffic Act. Crossing guards direct and supervise the movement of students across the road by creating necessary gaps in traffic to provide a safe passage at a designated school crossing location. They signal the students once it is safe to cross, guiding them to walk briskly while keeping the stop paddle raised until everyone has crossed safely. They balance the traffic and pedestrian flow, exercising sound judgment and effective communication to crosswalk users regarding safe crossing practices. You can see a crossing guard from a far distance because they are wearing personal protective equipment, or PPE, a high-vis fluorescent safety vest, and a reflective stop sign paddle. Next slide, please. Did you know it's the law? Under the Highway Traffic Act, drivers and cyclists can only proceed through the intersection when pedestrians have crossed and are safely on the sidewalk. The stop sign carried by a crossing guard has the same legal authority as a stop sign at an intersection. There are fines for not obeying the crossing guards. Next slide, please. Crossing guards also enhance the safety by crossing guards also enhance road safety by educating students on safe crossing practices, including getting off bikes and scooters and walking them across the street. This is mandated by the Highway Traffic Act as well, and helps to educate children at young ages to encourage good road crossing practices. Crossing guards are dedicated individuals from within the community who are committed to ensuring that children cross the busy streets to get to school safely throughout the school year in any type of weather, from extreme cold, snow, and wind to extreme heat, sunny and rainy days. Crossing guards work to keep communities safe. They create safe environments. Next slide. I'd like to share with you some helpful reminders and tips for traveling safely while in a car on your journey to school, for both you as the driver and the students who are active in their journey to school. Most important thing when driving is to be alert. Pay attention to your speed and avoid all distractions, like using a cell phone while driving. It is against the law and carries heavy fines and driver penalties. When driving, stop, look, listen, and be aware. Drive very slowly through designated school zones, residential areas, or any area where children could be walking. Pay attention to the no parking, no stopping signs in front of schools, especially in the kiss and ride areas. Always obey the speed limits and drive to the conditions, and be patient. Next slide. When you're driving, you must also remember, don't park near or on a crosswalk. This blocks the sight lines and makes it dangerous for children and families crossing. Proceed through a crossing or make a right, or the crossing guard has lowered their stop sign and all pedestrians are safely on the sidewalk. Drivers cannot make a right-hand turn when a crossing guard has the stop sign raised until all have crossed the road safely and the crossing guard lowers the stop sign. Next page, please. On the screen, you'll notice a safe stopping distances for vehicles guide. This is a great way to prevent accidents, allowing the vehicle more space to make the stop, especially in weather conditions such as rain. Next slide. Next, I would like to mention a few safety tips for parents to use when preparing your students for active school travel. Review best practices for safety on how to cross the road safely and explain the traffic signals and crosswalks. Again, stop, look, listen, and think. Teach students to look both ways. Stop at the edge of the sidewalk before stepping onto the road. If possible, make eye contact with the driver before crossing. Explain to them to listen and wait to ensure all vehicles have stopped before entering the roadway. Tell them never to cross between parked cars. Parents need to encourage students to cross where a crossing guard or other marked crossings and to respect the crossing guard's directions. Parents need to set good examples. be a lifesaver, and practice road safety throughout the school year. Thank you, everyone, and back to Peggy for myth and facts. Next slide.
Thank you so much, Michelle. There were some really great tips for walkers and drivers and just everyone in the community. So thank you for sharing that information with all of us. So we have another myth or fact. I think people are getting the drill and knowing how to interact. So this is great. So this next one is myth or fact. Convenience is the primary reason most caregivers choose the travel modes they choose. What do you think? Do you think this is a myth, or if you think it's a fact, let us know in the chat. Myth or fact, convenience is the primary reason most caregivers choose the travel modes they choose. What do people think? If you thought this was a fact, you are correct. So plan to make active travel a more convenient option by planning ahead, walking part way if you have time pressures, or coordinating with other families to share supervision duties of the walk to school. So a little advanced planning can take the morning rush to school from a stressful experience to an enjoyable one that leaves you feeling refreshed to start your day. So we have some more tips for walking and rolling from the Peel Children's Safety Village. So I'd love to hear from you, Constable Wood.
Great, thanks, Peggy. Hello, everybody. My name is Constable Michael Wood. I work with the Peel Regional Police, and I'm in Crime Prevention Services. I also work under the umbrella of the Peel Regional Police Community Safety and Wellbeing Bureau, which encompasses the Peel Children's Safety Village. Now, we'll talk a lot of information that we've already had from Michelle and Peggy and the others about safe walking to school. I'm going to reiterate some of those safety tips, as well as talk about a little bit more as well. But, you know, walking and rolling to school, preparing for independence. Some parents may ask, when is it time? When is it appropriate? When should my child be able to do this on their own or with their friends? And we'll discuss a little bit about that. But every school journey begins and ends with active transportation. So whether it be walking or rolling on a bicycle or a scooter, as children grow, they may eventually be able to make their own journey on their own or with somebody else, a friend. However, it's really dependent on the actual child as well as the parent, how comfortable both are and how much experience, and we've discussed that already, and as well as when they're ready and feel safe. Let me just flip to the next slide there. So as part of our area and community safety and well-being encompasses the Peel Children's Safety Village. Now that's located at the CAA Sports Park in the city of Brampton. Is an interactive safety educational center offering programs to children within the region of Peel. Now, since 1994, over 300,000 students have received our safety lessons, including community helpers, 911, personal safety, pedestrian and bicycle safety, bus patroller, and online safety. And as your children get a little bit older and are ready to start walking to school, I want to provide some tips to help their journey and be a little bit safer. Just flip to the next slide, please. Now, whether children are walking or riding their bicycles to school, we want them to remember some of these tips. Some of these tips Michelle already went through, and Peggy as well, but it's very important that parents understand and reiterate this and educate their children, and again, being lifesavers. Now, when they're at an intersection, it's important to stop, not proceed until it's safe to do so. Now, I'm not just looking both ways, but we want everybody to look always. You know, at the Safety Village, we want you to look always every time before crossing the street. Going to stop, take a look to your left, take a look to your right, take a quick peek back. And why are we looking back? We always want to look back, see those cars that are maybe coming up from behind, possibly turning into our path. We don't want to walk in front of those cars while they're turning. And if it's not safe to do so, not safe to proceed through an intersection, then shouldn't do that. Ensure that your children, even yourself as a role model, ensure that whether you have the right of way or not, but safety is paramount. Want to ensure that it's safe to do so. And want to listen. listen. What are we listening for? Listening for cars, we're listening for trucks, bicycles, buses, and even emergency vehicles. You may hear sirens coming from a far distance. At that point, you may want to look to see where that particular emergency vehicle is approaching from and ensure that we're not crossing into that path. When crossing the intersection, now there's many different types of intersections. Some may offer and have the equipped traffic signals. It's important to utilize that push that little button when we're crossing that intersection. Prior to crossing that intersection. By pushing that little cross button, that will activate the walk signal. Now, it's important that prior to proceeding, when it's safe to do so, that walk signal is activated. You'll see that little person on the other side of the roadway. Now, if at any point that hand starts to stop, you may see numbers counting down, flashing. That is not the time to proceed. It is only time to safely proceed and safe to walk when that walk symbol is activated. And don't start crossing or trying to beat those numbers or beat that flashing hand. Now, some personal safety tips and information. 2 at the rules of the safety village for walking to school is first check, right? Have your children get in the habit of checking with you first before they're going anywhere. Now, this is not necessarily maybe walking to school, but anytime it's important to have them check before they go anywhere, do anything, as well as take anything from anyone, okay? And take a friend. You're stronger and safer when you're not alone. There is safety in numbers and there is strength in numbers. Parents, know the route to school and have the children practice the same route. It may not be at the same time in the morning, but even possibly after work, when you're before dinner, after dinner, practice those routes and have that experience of taking that route and that experience for your child to see what they may encounter, what different intersections that they may have to cross. But it is important to utilize crossing at intersections. Michelle already touched on not darting between vehicles. If the opportunity presents itself, if there is a crossing guard, that's a great place to use, and other intersections. So not in the middle of the roadway. If it is in the middle of a roadway, depending on your particular environment and depending on your particular roadway, it's got to be in. It is safer to do it at an intersection rather than through the middle of the roadway. If you're going to just go to the next slide here. So Peggy already alluded to this checklist. This is a great resource. It's at the Walk and Roll to School, a guide for parents. Now this is taken right from that. Now it's a great checklist. If you can't screenshot this particular screen right here, it is online. Peggy made mention of it. It's at Walk and Roll Peel, as well as stopper.ca. And just a little checklist to go over with your children to ensure that they're doing some of these or all of these correctly, and they have the confidence to do a lot of these different skills on their own, as well as you believe that they have the confidence to do these different skills, especially when it comes to crossing those intersections, when it comes to, know the route to and from school, to ensure that if the child may not get lost. But a lot of different great tips here. So ensure that, take a look at this. It is online, it's accessible there. And while you're practicing, take that checklist out and check off a couple different boxes a day when you're practicing, right? So it's an excellent resource there. But when we talked about, is it time? Is my child ready? Should it be ready by a certain age? And Peggy just spoke about this when we're talking about the facts or the myths. Now, there is no specific age or specific grade that is appropriate for a child to walk to school. You have to ensure that the child is confident to do it. You're confident that they're doing it on their own. They're satisfying all these different criteria on this checklist so that they're safe, and you feel that they're safe enough to do so. So, and when your child is mature enough to do all of these things consistently, it may be time to let them walk to school on their own, or possibly with their friends as well, because there is safety in numbers. Well, it's a lot of information. I kind of reiterated some of what Michelle and Peggy were saying. Peggy, I'm going to turn it back to you for some further information.
All right, great. Thank you, Constable Wood. It's, I think, really great to reiterate some of the information. And then, yeah, as he mentioned, the checklist is a great resource that you can find on a bunch of our websites, our PSARTS kind of websites. So please do check it out. So this is actually our last myth or fact. So far, we've seen so many people get some really correct answers. So maybe you'll be on a streak to get all of them correct. So this is our last one. Myth or fact, in Canada, it is often too rainy or cold to walk to school. What do people think? Will you get all of these correct? Some answers coming in. If you said a myth, you are correct. And the key is to be prepared and dressed in layers. So if you're dressing your child appropriately for recess, they should be fine for a walk to school. So remember, there's no such thing as bad weather, only inappropriate clothing. So we've heard a lot about walking, busing. What about if your child is ready for cycling? So I'm happy to have Rahul from Peel Multicultural Council to share a little about biking to school.
Thanks so much, Peggy, and thanks everyone for joining us today. I'm going to follow up with the Constable's great tips so far and talk a bit more about your cycling journey to school. So in this presentation, I will share a few tips and tricks as you begin or continue your cycling journey to school. Maybe it's by yourself, with your friends and family, or even with a teacher or two. So to start, before we go to the next slide, why do you ride a bike to school? Or for those not in school, why do you ride a bike? So I want you to think about some of the reasons you might enjoy it, some of the benefits. Think back to our first presentation by Sabat, who gave some great examples at the start as well. And we can head to the next slide if everyone's ready. So some reasons that I like, that you might as well, are things like our health. It's so good for our health to ride a bike and to be outdoors. It can often be convenient. You might just bike by a traffic jam or two. It's really great for the environment. This is a vehicle that requires no energy except for your 2 feet. And it's a great way to build community, seeing more of your neighbors, your friends, as you make that journey to school. And of course, I know a lot of kids, a lot of people love to just ride, go fast, have fun, ring that bell. So that's another great reason as well. So next up, we're going to get ready to ride. And that means making sure we're prepared, our bike is ready and safe, as well as some extra tips. So starting with be prepared, let's make sure that we ourselves, not our bike, have planned our trip. So check out your local cycling map provided by your city, where you can check out the complete Region of Peel map on the Walk and Roll website that was shared earlier and will be shared at the end as well. Think about what are the essentials you need. So this could be certainly your helmet, maybe some snacks, a bag with supplies for school, and a phone if you have one. Dressing for the weather, like we talked about, there is really no bad weather. It's just, are you prepared? So closed-toe shoes, a rain jacket in wet weather, multiple layers for cooler days, and full sleeve clothing and sunscreen to protect from the elements. And of course, make sure you have working bell and lights. That's really important just to be safe, be heard, and be seen. Let's go to the next slide, please. Let's talk more about your bike now. We're getting close to grabbing our bike. Safety starts with our helmet. So is your helmet fitting correctly? Do you know that there is a 3-step trick called the 2-V-1 rule or the 2-4-1 rule? So we show it here as the 2-4-1. I've got my helmet with me right now, so I can quickly demonstrate. We want to make sure we have 1 or 2 fingers between our eyebrows and the bottom of the helmet. We want to make sure that the helmet forms a V on either side, so those are your 2 fingers, and that it is nice and even. And then finally, we want to make sure when we close our helmet, 1 or 2 fingers should fit underneath. Make sure it's a nice and snug fit. It shouldn't be moving around much at all. And you might have a dial at the back to keep it even, tighter, and snug. Practice this and you will become a pro in no time. Next slide, please. We are here at your bike. Is your bike safe and ready to ride? There's also 3 quick steps called the ABC check. A stands for air, making sure your tires are pumped. B stands for 2 parts, your brakes, making sure your left front brake is nice and tight, and your right back brake is the same. Sometimes our right brake can become more loose over time because that is considered our main brake. So squeezing your right brake to stop the back wheel. Are our handlebars nice and snug? So they should move left and right with your front wheel. And then finally, looking at our bike chain, what keeps us in motion, is it clean, well lubricated, no dirt and debris, and nice and tight? Is our crank connected to our pedals here? You can see the arm, that's called our crank. Is that also secure? So it should not wobble from side to side. It should move in a smooth and complete circle. Let's head to the next slide now. It's time to ride. So when we're riding, I want to share a few more tips here. If you're riding on the sidewalk or bike lane, it's important we ride single file, making sure we only ride on the sidewalk based on local rules, often called bylaws, that are in place. In Peel region, that is for bike tires that are 50 centimeters in diameter or less. You're A-okay on the sidewalk, but I know there are always people who might not be ready for the road just yet. So if you decide to use the sidewalk, please give priority to those walking, pedestrians, and travel slowly, including, like was shared earlier, walking your bike across crosswalks or biking your bike if there is a cross ride, a new type of crossing in the region of Peel. On a trail, you should also be aware because you are sharing that space with other users as well. Finally, I know hand signals can be tricky. It does take some practice and balance, but please do practice these over time. Start in a park, practice with friends and family, and make sure to look behind you, called a shoulder check, whenever you do a change in your ride, be it stopping or making a turn. Let's head to the next slide. Some more tips before we wrap things up. Always be aware of those around you, be it with a shoulder check or just knowing your surroundings. Maybe there's a squirrel about to run across your bike lane, so make sure you're prepared for whatever comes your way on that journey. That includes the signs. That could be a stop sign, that could be a crosswalk, that could be a sign that tells you no bikes allowed on this highway. So make sure you know the signs around you. Ride where you feel comfortable. Some of your friends might be on a sidewalk, some might be on a trail, some on a bike lane. Ride where you feel best and build that confidence over time. And finally, strength in numbers. And we're going to get to that in just 1 second. The more people you ride with, it feels so safe and so much more controlled, enjoyable. You can follow one another and go to school as a group. So those are some tips I wanted to finish off with, and we'll head on to the next slide. There are many more tips available through the great resources provided by the region of Peel. These include the cyclist handbooks for adults and families, the walk and roll guide to school for parents, as well as the Ontario Young Cyclist Guide. You can find these booklets or links to these guides on the Walk and Roll website by the region of Peel. So we have something a little extra, and I will probably be passing it back, I think, maybe to Peggy or our moderators, to play a video showcasing the concept of a bike bus. So this should inspire you to think, if we can get many people in our school, in our community biking together, so much more is possible. Please enjoy.
We have a set route, we go at a set time, and there are stops on the way, so that's why we're like a bus. We started really small, we were just 5 families, and now we average about 50 to 60 of us. The way that it's brought kind of community and joy, and the way we have been able to talk about the space that our kids need in our cities to just ride their bikes or do what they want to do has surpassed any of my expectations.
I love the bike bus because I can chat with my friends and it's a fun way to get to school. It's good for your body and it's also good for the environment. When I get to school, I don't get sleepy anymore.
The first time I went on the bike bus, I was a bit nervous. I thought, there's a lot of children here. Some of them are really small. Surely people are just going to be crashing into each other. This is a bit terrifying. But actually, all the kids know they just have to keep a bit of space around them. The grown-ups are between the kids and the traffic. And actually, it's fine.
when I press this button, it holds a green light. Instead of having 10 seconds, we then have 45 seconds to move the bike bus through the junction safely. It shouldn't be this hard for a kid to cycle to school. Every week it's like a gentle protest, right? Every week we take up that space and we're on the roads with our kids in a way that's joyous, but it's also about doing something that's not typical. And I think all of us love the bike bus, but we'd also love it not to have to exist.
All right, thank you, Rahul, for sharing that inspiring video at the very end and telling us that a bike-friendly city is possible. And some further inspiration, bike buses don't only exist. We've also seen walking school buses as well, in addition to see different ways for people to actively move to school. So thank you so much to all of our presenters for providing all of your insights on how to travel in a safe, active, and healthy way to school this year. So we received many questions during registration and hoped that the presentations already answered some of your questions. So next slide, we're going to go on to our question period. So unfortunately, we're not able to answer everybody's questions, but we've selected kind of the most common questions that wasn't covered in the presentations. If you still have any lingering questions, please submit them through the chat and we'll try to answer as many as possible and then send them through like a Q&A fact sheet to our registrants via email. And then we'll post it also with the video recording. If you have any specific questions that like pertaining to your child's individual schools, we do ask that you please contact the school itself, like contact the administrator at the school. If you don't know how to find that information, you can go online and go to your school board's school directory. So depending on which school board you're a part of, go onto their website and then go check out their school directory. So I have a series of Q&A questions that are prepared for our panelists, and we're going to start with Darcy. And the first question is that my child will be riding the school bus for the first time this September. And do you have any tips for a nervous rider? Darcy?
Absolutely, we do. So every year we have a first-time rider safety program, which I had mentioned earlier, and that took place last Saturday. However, you can access our program on our website, and it's stopr.ca. Under the safety tab, you will see the first-time rider program. I encourage you to sit down with your child and watch the video together and talk about it. There's a lot of safety information as well as an orientation process to make your child more comfortable with riding the school bus. Back to you, Peggy.
Thank you, Darcy. I also found, I think on the website, there's fun like fact sheets and things like that. So do check it out if you have a nervous first-time rider to make them more comfortable. So our next question is going to be for Constable Wood. So at what age can a child walk to and from school with a sibling or alone? And how best can I prepare my child for walking to school?
Thanks, Peggy. And I'm sure a lot of parents have this same question, especially if they're new to having their child potentially walk or ride to school. But you know, a lot of safety information was given by Michelle and as well as myself and Peggy too. But it's important to take a look at that checklist in the walk and roll a guide for parents. Now, definitely that will help you and help you determine whether or not your child is ready to be on their own or maybe with a sibling to walk or ride to school. You know, Peggy discussed, you know, if it's fact or myth, if they're too young. Potentially there are times where they may be too young or maybe too immature to recognize different safety concerns. But when you've practiced many times with them, when you display a good image for them, being a role model and showing them the proper ways in order to use different crosswalks and what the different rules of the road and what they might encounter. Definitely it'll assist them becoming more confident to do it on their own. Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you. So yeah, I think also referring back to that checklist, assessing whether your child can do those things as like an always check is also a great way to assess at what age. So our next question is for Michelle, as we talk about kind of the paths that are better to take. So if I have to choose up along a busy street with more traffic or a more quiet street near houses with less movement, what advice do you have, Michelle?
Thanks, Peggy. Really, both routes are equal. One is not better than the other. I would suggest that planning ahead and practicing, like Constable Wood has said too, practice the routes, whether it's the quiet route or the busy route, finding out what your child is comfortable with doing will help determine which route is best for them. They have to be comfortable with the route. It's best to travel with others as well. That's a very safe way to travel the routes. The Peel Walk and Roll map is a great tool to see the routes and determine the distance from your home address to the school, your child's school. So I would recommend taking a look at that map as well. Thanks, Peggy.
Thanks, Michelle. Our next question is lots of parents have observed that the school parking lots are often too busy. So my question is for Sabat. Do you have any suggestions on where to drop off my child?
Yeah, so it tends to be best for schools for parents to park and walk. And you can also participate in campaigns encouraging parking, walking, this campaign called Drive to 5. So and also to park in a way that also is considerate of others in the community when you are parking and walking. So not obscuring driveways and parking legally, but parking, walking, and walking for about 5 to 10 minutes. Tends to be best and also reduces the amount of pollution near the school if multiple parents are decreasing the frequency at which they park directly surrounding the school, and it overall increases the visibility of children, and it has numerous safety benefits. So getting familiar with your school community and parking on local roads where it is legal and quieter tends to be best when dropping your kids off to school via car.
Great, thank you, Sabat. I love the we call it a Drive to 5 campaign. So driving a bit and then walking with your child. So we have one more question for Wahul. Is there a safe and secure place at school to park my bike or scooter? And then what about electric scooters? What are your thoughts?
That's a great question, Peggy, and thank you for whoever asked it. Most schools now do have safe and secure bike parking, but do check with your school's principal if there isn't. And so we're looking for something in a well-lit area. These are bike parking posts or racks where not just the bike wheel, but the frame can be secured as well, or the scooter main beam, I guess, which you're holding the handlebars from. You want to make sure that this is bike parking that is secure to the ground, again, well visible. You're locking your bike just to your bike and the bike parking, not to someone else's bike, using a strong U-lock or a chain or a cable with a U-lock. So 2 locks to, again, secure your frame and wheel is a really great idea. Also just want to mention that regarding motorized bikes, so an e-bike or e-scooter, it is the law, you have to be 16 or older. Please make sure you have your helmet with you. And if you have accessories on your bike or scooter, consider taking those inside. There are great resources on the Ontario Government website and the Walk and Roll Peel website that talk more about bike and scooter safety and security. So please do check those out for more details. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Rahul. So we have a few more questions that for Michelle, Constable Wood, and Darcy. So Michelle, if you can answer this next question, what measures can be taken to prepare and keep routes safe for walking to school in the winter?
Thanks, Peggy. Pardon me. Again, being prepared, planning ahead, checking the weather network for what the conditions are going to be each day during the winter. Checking your children's boots. Are the treads on the boots thick or they worn out? Because you want to have a thick tread on your boot or shoe to prevent or avoid slipping in the snow and slippery conditions. Of course, dressing appropriately, looking for the sidewalks that have been plowed, walking on sidewalks, avoiding the snow banks that are near the roads. I know children like to jump and play in them. So again, educating children on how to walk safely in winter conditions is what I would recommend. Thanks, Peggy.
Thank you, Michelle. And I know that if you need some plowing for routes and things like that, you can always call your local municipality to make sure that those walking routes are safe for your children. So our next question we got from quite a few parents saying that they don't want to make their child anxious or scared. So they want to know about any tips on how I can educate my child on speaking to strangers or what to do when they're feeling unsafe. Constable Wood, would you be able to answer this question?
Yes, Peggy, I could. Yes, and it is a concern for a lot of parents, depending on what they've experienced or maybe seen on the news, but we want to keep all our children safe. We want to keep everybody safe in the community, especially our children, especially when they're walking to school, either with their classmates or even on their own. But it's important to communicate with your child and to educate them in a way that they'll understand that, the potential dangers of, people that they don't know. They may interact or see people on their path to school, walking to school, or walking about the community. And essentially, everybody's a stranger. Not everybody's a bad person, but it's important that, to most individuals will not engage a child and try to have a conversation with them. Inform them that most people will not ask a child for directions, and they shouldn't feel obligated to provide assistance or help an adult. It's important to know that a potential stranger, a potential bad person, could be anybody. It could be an adult, a teenager, a male, a female, a mom or a dad, whether they be alone or with another person. So it's important, if they feel uncomfortable, to let that person know. To tell them in a loud voice that I'm just going to see my mom or my dad. They're right over there. That may, if that person was there for a purpose they shouldn't be, then potentially that might even scare them off. But ensuring too that they're not engaging with individuals that they really shouldn't be engaging with or talking to. If somebody asks them for directions or to come close to a vehicle, ensure that they're know not to do that, not to continue to to that particular vehicle. If anybody asks or tells them that the mom and dad had asked them to pick them up because there was some sort of an emergency, ensure that your family has like a safe word, right? So that only the family would understand this particular word, and that is to be used in order to communicate with the family, and not to spread that safe word to other friends or anything like that that they may have, because it should be safe within that particular family and only to be used. And educate your child that you won't be sending just random people to pick them up. It'll be a loved one or somebody that they might know, like a neighbor or a family member. But you know, in a case that if they become uncomfortable with somebody, depending on the situation, they can indicate again that you know, the parents is right over there. They're just going to see them over there. If it's a more emergent situation, if somebody tries to potentially grab the child, and I'm you know, maybe scaring some people when I'm saying this, but ensure that they're very vocal and yelling, "This is not my parent," so that it draws the attention of others in the community, other people that may help. If they feel that they're, you know, somebody might be following them or feel suspicious of somebody, approach another family, possibly another mother or father with a group of children, another adult like a crossing guard. You know, if you see a bus driver there, potentially a teacher, if you're close to school, and let them know and notify them of what happened, so that they can help them. Situation too is going to a house and ringing the doorbell several times, but that's a more emergent situation, and you know, hopefully we never have to be in that particular area, but not to hide or not to listen to whoever's possibly engaging them, like the stranger, if you will, but ensure that they're aware of potentials that might happen. Don't, and again, it's hard to navigate the subject without possibly instilling a little bit of fear and a little bit of potential anxiety. However, it's the more you communicate it, the more you educate it, the more they're aware, the more they're empowered in order to do the right thing, because they shouldn't feel that worried about hurting a stranger's feeling. If somebody, you know, if they tell, "I don't want to talk to you," then, you know, as an adult, they shouldn't, the child shouldn't fear that the adult's going to be offended by that or anything like that. So, but if they do become lost, and maybe a situation where they're on their route and not very many people are around, ensure that they're telling an adult or a trusted adult, like a crossing guard, if they see them, maybe another family or parent, that they can communicate with a cell phone and contact, whether it be police or the school, or maybe even if the child knows your phone number, that they can contact you as the parent, so that you know, they can communicate with the parent. But you know, it's a lot of information to unpack in this, and in a lot of scenarios, but ensure that, you know, bottom line is communicating with your child to know the potential risks that you may believe that are out there, that are out there, and educate them on what to do and how to be vocal themselves. Thanks, Peggy.
Some really great tips, and I think you can always refer back to the Peel Children's Safety Village website for more information and some of those safety tips.
Yeah, definitely. Sorry, and again too, I'm not sure if it's up on the screen, but please, yeah, check out peelpolice.ca. There's a little magnifying glass to search for different items within the website. And if you even if you were to do an online search of the Peel Children's Safety Village, there's a lot of an abundance of safety information there that you can continue learning about.
Thank you so much. So we do have one more question. So some of our parents might be concerned if their child has special needs or special accommodations, especially when they're riding the school bus. So Darcy, can you share a little bit about the accommodations that are provided for children with special needs on the school bus?
Certainly, Peggy, and thank you. That's an excellent question. At STARPAR, we take all reasonable measures to make sure that all the students, regardless of what their needs are transported. For one, part of our safety program is we provide, when necessary, CSA booster seats, car seats, and when appropriate, we also supply safety vests that are specifically designed for school buses. The first step in accommodations of kids with special needs is we are in constant communication with the special needs departments at each school board. And with their guidance, they help us identify exactly what the need is and the best way to accommodate each student on a school bus. Part of that is we have vehicles of different sizes, including a wheelchair vehicle, and Depending on the child's needs, it may be best that they get transported on a smaller vehicle rather than the big buses that we have. In addition to all of this, all of our drivers are given extensive training to make sure that they have the tools and knowledge to interact with students of all ability levels in a safe, approachable, and age-appropriate manner. In addition, they have to be compliant with any legislation, provincial legislation, such as the AODA Act. Thank you, Peggy.
Thank you, Darcy. Really great information. So this is all the time we have for questions tonight. So any unanswered questions, we will collect and try to answer them and try to get back to everyone via email after the webinar, as well as, again, it will be posted on the website. Before you go, I do want to highlight some things. So please check out the various community events that are hosted by our PSARTS partners. So especially if you're interested in riding and gaining that confidence to ride your bike with your family, with your children, come and join a community bike ride in Mississauga or sign up for a bicycle skills program with TRCA. And we also encourage everyone to participate with your school and celebrate Walk to School Month and Pedestrian Safety Month in October. Next slide. So thank you everyone for your time today in tuning into our webinar. So we ask that you please take some time to complete our feedback survey to help us improve our future events. And we actually this year, participants that complete the survey can actually be entered into a prize draw. So we have one TRCA Family Parks membership to give away, as well as 8 prize packages with bike bells, reflector straps, water bottle, bike pins, and rulers to help you get outside and ready for school. If you found this webinar helpful, we will make this available for you to refer back to at any time. We also ask that please share it with other families in your community. We also encourage you to check out various resources offered by the Region of Peel and their community partners. So have an active, safe, and healthy back to school, everybody. And we're going to play the video that we played at the beginning just to kind of end and give you some summary of what we talked about today. Have a good night, everyone.
Every day you make the choice on how your children get to school. Should you drive them? Should they walk? Should they bike? Should you go with them? What sounds better to you? Active, healthy kids excited to get to school and learn, or a hectic, stressful morning drive to a crowded school parking lot? Would you prefer to see your children socializing and meeting their friends and neighbors on their daily walk to school? When bike lanes and paths through parks are available, the benefits of walking and cycling outweigh the risks almost 100 to 1. But even without bike lanes and with people driving cars, the benefits still outweigh the risks 9 to 1. Being active promotes well-being and positive mental health, helps kids focus, and improves creativity. Studies have shown that kids who get 30 to 40 minutes of exercise daily out of the recommended 60 minutes are able to concentrate and show less behavioral problems than kids who have a non-active lifestyle. Most children in Ontario are not getting enough exercise. By the time our kids reach high school, more than a third of the boys and girls are failing basic fitness scores. Driving our kids to school may rob them of an important source of physical activity. As parents, we have to encourage physical activity and make sure we keep them active throughout their lives. The tremendous health and academic benefits of walking and cycling to school also have an impact on the environment. Kids today are aware of environmental issues and empowered to take action.
We want to get more people to walk to school.
Through environmental clubs in the schools, student eco-teams encourage their peers to walk and cycle to school. Through the use of posters, surveys, social media, and information nights, the students promote Walk to School Wednesdays, October as Walk to School Month, and Bike to School Week in the spring. How can you help your child stay active and healthy? Encourage and allow them to walk or bike to school. Walk or cycle with them and enjoy the time together. Start your own walking groups with parent volunteers and students on your street. And don't forget to advocate in your community. More kids walking and biking mean less cars around the school, making it safer and healthier for the kids, parents, staff, and the environment.